Today's daf we're going to be learning is Bava Batra Daf Nun Zayin. Today's daf is sponsored by Deborah Asham Weiss in loving memory of her father, David Asham Zichrono Lebracha, whose 44th year at site is today. You left us too soon at the age of 56. Although your Jewish education was interrupted because of World War II, you always ensured that I got a Jewish Zionist education. You would be proud of the legacy you left. My aliyah a year ago with Robert, my continuous learning with Hadran since the stop cycle began, and the achievements of Eitan and David Weiss in the International Little League Championships played in Kovno, Poland. Eitan proudly carried the Israeli flag on the soil that our ancestors fled in 1900. Okay, we are going to get started with our daf. We ended Numvav Amubet at the bottom with Shlosha Achim ve'echad mitzteref b'mahem harei elu shalosh eduyot behein edut echad lahazama. We have a case of brothers who all testify together, but really separate, right? It's together but separate model. Each one testifies about a different year, and each one goes with Joe. I think that was the example we used yesterday. Joe is the one witness who testifies about all 3 years, and each time with a different brother. Now we're going to have a different case of brothers. We have a star that two people are signed on. One of them dies. Now, one person's still alive. He has a brother. So the one who's still alive has a brother. And that person's brother, okay, so brother A and brother B. Brother A is signed with Joe on a document. Brother B comes along with Jack, and the two of them testify about the validity of Joe's signature. So brother B and Jack testify about Joe's signature and say this is a valid signature to basically make the document work. Now, theoretically, it's like our case because it's two brothers, but each one is testifying about a different piece, okay? Different years, different witness, right? Theoretically, there's two witnesses. One brother has to do with one, and the other brother has to do with the other witness. So, does that work? So Rabbi thought to say, hey, this is just like our Mishna, because the two brothers really have nothing to do with each other, because just like each one is talking about a different year, each brother is dealing with a different part of the testimony. So again, one brother is the witness, and the other one is testifying about the other witness. It's just like that. But Ravashi Midami. Ravashi said, what are you talking about? These are not the same at all. In that case, we don't have 3/4 of the testimony, or any percentage more than half, being done by the brothers, right? Because what happens? Joe is half, 50% of the testimony, and the three brothers are each 1/3 of a half, right? That's how it works. But here you have 3/4 of the testimony being done by brothers, and that is definitely not valid, right? How does that work? Because you have one witness is a brother. He's 50% of the testimony. The other witness now is verified by 50% of that other witness, which is basically going to add up to 3/4 of the whole thing, is done by the other brother. So 3/4 of this whole case is built on two brothers. That's definitely not going to work. And therefore, he says, no, this doesn't go. Okay, and that's our case right now. That ends our Mishnah, and now we're going to start with a new Mishnah, a new topic. Going back to laws of chazaka, of creating a chazaka by being in the land for 3 years. So the Mishnah starts off and says, Elu dvarim sheyesh lahem chazaka, ve'elu dvarim she'en lahem chazaka. Now we're going to talk about some methods that create a chazaka and some methods of, again, you're doing something for 3 years, the owner doesn't protest. Some methods are not going to create a chazaka. So let's see which is which. Hayama amid behema b'chatzir. You put up an animal in someone else's courtyard, and your animal is there constantly. Or tanur v'rechayim b'kirayim, where you put up an oven or a millstone or a burner, and you use them for 3 years in someone else's property. Umagader tarnagolim, or you're raising roosters, chickens. V'noten zivlo b'chatzir. You put your fertilizer in their courtyard. Eina chazaka. That does not work to create a chazaka. Aval, but if you build a wall that's 10 tvachim high, or your tanur is there and you put a gate around it, some sort of structure around it, 10 tvachim high, or you put the roosters in the person's house, Or you dug 3 tvachim down into the ground to put your fertilizer, or you built something 3 tvachim high and insert a place to basically protect your fertilizer, then harezo chazaka. So then that creates a chazaka. Now we don't really understand yet, and it's going to be the Gemara's basic question here, is what's the difference between the first part and the second part? Mishna resho, Mishna seifa. What's the difference between them? Amar Ula. So we're going to have for this 4 answers, because the question is really both of them, right? Both the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah are describing situations that you would have expected someone to protest. I bring my animals into your field, right? You're not going to protest. Must be the property's mine, but we say it's not. So what's the difference? So Ula says, Kol she'ilu b'nichse hagel kana, b'nichse chavero kana. Kol she'ilu b'nichse hagel lo kana, b'nichse chavero lo kana. Now this goes back to the 2 types of chazakas we were talking about before. One chazaka is, you didn't protest, I've been here for 3 years, right? That's a sign I must be the owner if I claim I bought it from you. Then we have a chazaka, which is, you agree that I'm buying it. The question is, did the sale go through? Because if I didn't act, it was a chazaka, does it work? And then within that, we had a case where I take ownerless property and I start doing something with the ownerless property. Does that mean I become the rightful owner? So comes Ula and says, the criteria that we determined what could create a chazaka in nichse hager, which would be like building a wall, doing something to the property itself, rather than just using the property for my animals. But once I change the property, improve it, do something to it, then already that's a kinyan, then I've acquired it for myself. So we're going to use the same criteria, and that's why the first part of the Mishnah isn't going to work, but the second part is going to work. Now, there's obviously a difference between them, because in nichse hager, I don't have to wait 3 years. It's ownerless property. I do this action, and it's mine. But we're comparing it, whereas here we're talking about I did it for 3 years, and no one protested. But we're talking about the concept of what kind of action is needed. The problem is, this doesn't really work, because matke Rav Sheshet, uklalahu, this is a rule? No way. V'harei nil. What about plowing? Remember, we learned if you plow a field of nichse hager, it works. The nichse hager kana. But b'nichse chavero lo kana. If I plowed for 3 years, that's not, I can't acquire it. I have to have eaten produce. It's not enough to just plow your field. That doesn't work as a chazaka. And furthermore, we're now going to say something that doesn't work for nichse hager and does work here. V'areachilat perot. Right? Eating the produce. That's the main way you prove chazaka here of 3 years. And we already learned that that totally doesn't work when it comes to nichse hager, right? Nichse hager lo kana. Why doesn't it work? Because the property of a ger is all hefker. So are the fruits. If I eat the fruits, it's just I ate from fruits of hefker. It doesn't mean I own the land. So that doesn't work to create a chazaka. So basically, Ula's comparison is not a valid comparison because we have 2 problems. One is the plowing, and the other is the eating perot, which each one works in one case, doesn't work in the other. So Ela Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Rav. So it comes Rav Nachman with the second answer, which we're going to have to modify as we go along. You'll see there's going to be a problem with what he says, and we're going to change it a little bit. But then all the next answers are going to be based on his distinction that he makes. And he says, wait a minute, you thought that we were talking about, I went into some random person's courtyard and started putting my animal there, putting my, building a wall there, and that's what the Mishnah is talking about? No. We're talking about shared property. We're talking about, I live in the house next door to you, we have a shared courtyard. Now, what are courtyards used for if not for putting your stuff? So I can put my stuff in the courtyard. It doesn't mean that I've acquired that part of the courtyard for myself. It just means you don't care, you don't mind. Lo kapte. It doesn't bother you that I put my stuff there. So you let me leave my stuff there. And that's why you didn't complain. But on machitza, if I start building a wall in our courtyard that you didn't approve, kapte, okay? And therefore, if you didn't complain and I did this after 3 years, you didn't complain at all, then the property is obviously mine because otherwise you should have complained. So then they say, right, that's a machitza kapte. People will be upset if you put a machitza, but ha'amad k'ti lo kapte, right? But they're not, right? I'm sorry, wait, let me just read it again. Ba'amad k'ti lo kapte, machitza kapte, period. Okay, so hamada, they're not makpid, but machitza, they are makpid. So now the Gemara questions it and says, ba'amad k'ti lo kapte, what do you mean? People don't mind if you just put things in their courtyard? Yes, they do. Okay, why would they be bothered? Well, a courtyard space is for shared use. That means that if you put something and leave it there, you put your oven smack in the middle of our courtyard, or even on the side, that space that I can no longer access, that's going to be upsetting to me. I'm not going to just let you do that. This is very usable space. It's useful space. It's space that we're going to use all the time. I don't want you clogging it up with your stuff. So, and in fact, I'm going to prove it with a Mishna, he says, okay, what the Gemara says. The Hadran says in the Mishna, we have two people who are sharing a courtyard, and they each said, I will take a vow that I will not benefit from you at all. Asurim l'kanes l'chatzer. None of them can walk into that courtyard. Okay, we're going to be stuck if that's how our houses lead out to that courtyard, because neither of us can benefit. So what do you see here? You see that just putting something there, just the space itself, I am makpid on, because if I don't care and I say you can do whatever you want in that space, then you're not actually getting benefit from anything that belongs to me, because I kind of give up my rights. If we say I don't care if you put things there, then I basically give up my rights to that courtyard. So you should be able to walk through that courtyard shouldn't affect me. The fact that we have these laws and the laws of Nidarim, which show that if you say I vow never to get benefit from you, and if you say you'll never get benefit from me, you can't walk in that courtyard at all, because I do care. That proves I care. That's the bottom line. So it can't possibly be that that's what Rav Nachman said. So Ela Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Ravua Hacha Berechava Shel Achorei Batim Askinan. Okay, forget it. We're not talking about the front yard. The front yard is what we call the chatzer. That's the space that everybody uses. I'm talking about the backyard. Now, nowadays, our backyards maybe are even more usable than front yards, but depends, I guess, where you live and what your front and backyard look like. In those days, the backyards, nobody really used for much of anything. There, people don't care if you store things, if you have a shared backyard. But there you could say. So now we've modified Rav Nachman to say it's a chatzer shutafim. We share the space, and it's the backyard. It's the chatzer me'achorei batim. Rav Papa gives a different answer. Rav Papa Amar, but again, it's a modification of Rav Nachman. Both actually are the front courtyard. Ika de kapte, ika de lo kapte. Well, now he's going to say, you brought this big question from Neder, but I'll explain to you why laws of Nedarim were different from laws of courtyards. Because the way this courtyard works is some people are careful and don't want people putting things in their courtyard, and some people don't care. Might depend on how big your courtyard is, what you have needs for. So sometimes people care, sometimes people don't care. So when it comes to mamona, gabe mamona, we're going to compare mamon and isul, right? Neder is isser v'heter. You made a promise, you have to keep it. That's like laws between us and God. When it comes to, or laws of isurim, like chuma and tara and things like that. When it comes to isurim, we're always going to be more machmir. When it comes to mamono, we're going to be more lenient, okay? Monetary issues. So this is a monetary issue, our case. Am I allowed to use the space or not? When it comes to monetary issues, we're going to be lenient, meaning we're going to go with what's the lenient here? Well, do I care or do I not care? We're going to assume I don't care and you don't care about your place in the courtyard. If neither of us, right, if both sides don't care, or one side doesn't care, right, the issue is that one person put their property there and we assume the other person just didn't care, then there's no chazaka, because there's no way to prove, well, the person did protest. Why did they protest? Because they didn't care. But doesn't mean you're the owner, okay? But when it comes to isura, we're going to be l'chumra. When it comes to nidarim, we're going to be concerned that maybe the person does care. And therefore, if you said, I vow never to benefit from, you said about me, then you can't go through my courtyard, because that would be benefiting. Because we don't know if I'm makpid or not. We don't know if I care, but we're going to have to lean on the stringent side and say that I care. So that's option 3. Option 4 is Ravina. Ravina amar la'olam lo kapte. He goes and says, actually, the reason why it doesn't work if I put my animals in our shared courtyard is because for sure you don't care. None of this, maybe you care, or definitely, right? You care about this, you don't care about that. No. Really, you don't care. And it doesn't have to be just in the backyard. Even in the front yard, you don't care. So remember, Rav Nachman ended up saying in the front yard, we care. Even in the front yard, we don't care. So then what are we left to explain? Nidarim. Why in the case of vows do we, now again, let's just review. If you don't care, that means that I can leave my property, my animal there. You didn't complain. It doesn't mean that I own the property. I don't own the property. I can't create a chazaka. And that explains the difference between the first part and the second part. You will care if I put up a wall, but you won't care if I just put my animal there. So how do we explain Nedarim then? So if you don't care if I put my animal there, then why can't I walk through your courtyard if you don't care if I use your courtyard? So Hamane, Rabbi Eliezer, they say the Mishna in Nedarim is like Rabbi Eliezer, and it's a unique halacha there. Tanya Rabbi Eliezer omer afilu vitur asur b'mudana. Even if you don't care about something, if you have ownership rights to it, and I said, I vow never to benefit from you, I can't benefit from it, even if you could care less. Okay, what's the best example of vitur that we're talking about here? Like if I say keep the change, I don't care. Now, if you are not allowed to benefit from me, you can't keep the change because you're benefiting from me, even though I don't really care. I'm happy to give you the money. Doesn't matter, you're still benefiting. So likewise here. That's why neder is different, but don't bring neder as a difficulty because here we're not talking about the laws of nidarim. The laws of nidarim, Rabbi Eliezer was strict, and that source goes like that. Mishnah goes like Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so what we did right now is to try to figure out why putting my animal there is not going to create a chazaka, but putting up a wall will. We had Ula who compared it to nifsei hagir. We have Rav Nachman, which we rejected. We have Rav Nachman who said it's chatzer hashutfim. We jointly own it, but it's a backyard space, and that's why you don't care about me putting things, but you would care if I put a mechitza up, and that's why if you didn't protest, it must be my property. Rav Papa, who said, actually, it's just that we're going to be lenient when it comes to this and more strict when it comes to neder, so by neder, you can't do anything in the courtyard, but in these laws, you can, and therefore, again, the fact that you did and no one protested basically doesn't mean you're the owner of the land. And the fourth is to say, really nobody cares even in the front yard, and the issue is just that, and nobody cares if you put things there. And that's why there's this distinction. And the neder issue is just a unique halacha. Now we're going to talk more about this shared property, and we're going to get off on a tangent. I'm a Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Bena'a. We'll get to all sorts of stories about Rabbi Bena'a in tomorrow's daf. But kol shutafim akvin ze'etzeh. Anything, a partner, if we have a shared courtyard, I could stop you from doing anything except for chutz min hakvisa, except for laundry. I can't say to you, you can't do your laundry in the courtyard. Why is that? She'ein darkan shel bnei Yisrael hitbazot ala kvisa. Because it's not the way of Jewish women to go to where else would you do the laundry? You'd have to go into the lake or something and do your laundry there. And that's not sanua, because when you're doing laundry, your body moves, your clothes move off your legs, and your body might be exposed, and people don't do that. So basically, you can't do that kind of thing. Okay, we're going to assume that that you can't stop the women in your courtyard from doing the laundry. From here, it sounds like the women do the laundry. I just wanted to point out, I forgot what it said now, but I saw a great footnote that I wanted to comment on because it's about men doing laundry. I didn't want to miss that, so just let me check for a minute. Sorry to delay you. Let's find it. Right, Rabbeinu Gershom. No, that's not it. This one, no, it's not here. Oh no. Okay. Takana stop. Right. So he quotes the Yerushalmi here. Okay, I didn't look it up. I wanted to look it up, but I didn't have a chance. But he says that this is the Yerushalmi, quoting the Yerushalmi, it says the takana is only in a place. This is in the Schottenstein footnote. In the Hebrew, it's footnote 14, but if you have the English, it won't be the same. The takana, it's basically on this line. The takana is only in a place where men don't do the laundry, but the women do the laundry. That's what the Yerushalmi says, which means that there were places where men were doing laundry, lo and behold. So maybe particularly in Israel. Anyway, I have to open the Yerushalmi. It says it's in halacha, Perek Aleph halacha hey. So definitely something worth looking up. I don't know how easy it is to find it there. I don't know where, how big that halacha is, but anyway, be interesting to read. Okay. Apologies, I didn't have a chance to read it before class. Okay, let's move on. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Bena'a. Now that we did. Okay, now we have a pasuk. Otseim einav meraot bera. So now it says you should close your eyes from seeing bad. Okay, this is a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Okay, it's about the people, right? The righteous people close their eyes from seeing bad things. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba zeh she'em mistakel b'nashim b'sha'a she'omdot al hakvisa. Okay, this is another statement that shows that it's the men who didn't look at the women while they were doing the laundry, because that's when it's particularly not appropriate to look at women, because again, their body gets exposed. Hechidami. So now the question is, what is this pasuk referring to? Forget about these a righteous person for closing his eyes, but if there's another way to go, he's a rasha for walking there. Why did he walk in that path that goes right by the women doing the laundry? You should have taken a different path. And if there's nowhere else to go, undersue them. It's not his fault that he looks at the women while he's walking by. He has nowhere else to walk. What's he supposed to do? To which they answer, you can probably imagine where this is going. There really is no other way to go. But still, he should avoid it by closing his eyes, blocking his face, by making sure, even though he's passing by, shouldn't really be looking at them. And since we're on the topic of tzniut, and usually you say, well, we're always talking about the tzniut of women, and what about men? Well, this sugya goes to the tzniut of men as well. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Bena'a. So Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Bena'a the following question. Rabbi Bena'a was in the last generation of Tanaim. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan's already first to second generation Amoraim. So he asked the elder Rabbi Bena'a, Chaluk shel Talmidei Chachamim ketzad. What is the robe of, okay, the robe is really what they wore underneath, of a Talmid Chacham look like? So he answers him, it covers the entire body. You don't see any flesh underneath here. You see, high standard for Talmidei Chachamim. All their body has to be covered, right? No shorts, anything like that. Talit shel Talmidei Chachamim ketzad. What about the overgarment? What is that supposed to look like? All you can have is a tefach sticking out of the undergarments, but that's it. The talit should also cover the entire body, which means they basically have a double covering over almost the entire body. If we're already on the topic of Talmidei Chachamim and the higher standards that they keep, now they ask about the table of a Talmid Chacham. Shulchan shel Talmidei Chachamim ketzad. Shnei shlishei gedil ushlish gelai. So the idea here is that besides, right, their clothing should be organized and sanua, covering their body. Their table should be respectful. Okay? Now, what does it mean to have a respectful table? And it's not 100% clear what all these things mean, but we'll try our best. 2/3 with a cloth on it, and shlish gelai, and a third uncovered. Okay, now, it's kind of funny because alav, on the uncovered part, ka'arot v'yara. Now, we usually put a tablecloth on to protect the table, and therefore the tablecloth gets dirty, not the table. Seems like they don't want the tablecloth to get dirty. The tablecloth is supposed to be nice and clean, and the food is supposed to go on the uncovered part of the table. Okay? Because otherwise you're going to end up with, there you put the plates and the vegetables, v'taba'atomi b'chutz. Okay, then we'll get to this tabat in a minute. But it seems like the idea, okay, we can even try to read it inside in the Rashbam. He says here, you use this mapa. Okay, the mapa is going to get dirty, this cloth. L'kanech et pihem, I'm in the Rashbam on Shnei Shlishei Gvil Ushlish Galai, Shnei Shlishei Rochav HaShulchan. There's also, by the way, what 2/3? Some people say a third, and the middle third is uncovered. Some people say a third of the table on the side is uncovered, and that's where you put the food. Okay, there's a bit of a difference about which third. So then he says, what's the point of the mapa is on the side of the people eating? L'kanech et pihem v'latet aleha et hapat. Okay? ושליש החיצון מגולה להניח עליו קערות וכוסות שלא ילכלכו המפה ויתבזו האוכלים. They think it will not look respectful if you get it dirty. So the food that just makes some crumbs, that we leave on the tablecloth. But the food that's messy, some people say like the pots and the pans even, like that stuff goes on the uncovered part so it doesn't ruin your tablecloth and look like you have a messy table. And also it seems like organized. There's some like this, some parts like that. Okay, you'll see in a minute the opposite. But then they have this issue of the tabat. Now this is very hard to understand what they mean. They say taba'ato mibachutz, which the Rashbam says, tabat aval shulchan, shayu regilim la'asot b'sfato litloto bo. They would hang the table on the wall, right? They had no space. So when the table wasn't in use, they would hang it on the wall. So it had a ring on it. Okay, now the question is the ring on the inside or the ring on the outside? Okay, what exactly inside, outside means? It's a good question. Inside maybe is like under the table, outside could be on top of the table or jutting out from the table. So it's not 100% clear what they're referring to. So we'll try our best to understand. So the tabat goes on the outside of the table. Okay, we're going to have to explain why. The Gemara now asks, "V'hatanya tabato mibifnim." But wait, it says the ring is on the inside. So lo kasha hadi ika yunuka deleka yunuka, and as usual when they have this is when there is kids, this is when there aren't kids. Which is which? Good question. There's different opinions that flip it. Okay, some people say the kids are the kids sitting at the table. That's the Rashbam. Okay, as opposed to kids running around. Some people say the kids are dafka running around, and that's more of a problem on the outside. But we'll go with if the kids are at the table, and if they play with, kids love to just play with things that are around them, they'll play with the ring. If it's under the table or on the inside of the table, then it's more bothering the people at the table. Again, unclear exactly where it is, but maybe it's under the table, maybe it's on the table, but on the side. We don't know exactly, but if it's on the inside, the kids are going to play with it and it'll make the table fall apart. If it's on the outside, what's the problem? If there's no kids on the outside, well then, if there's no kids, on the inside, let me be clear about it. If there's kids, then we put it on the outside so the kids don't play with it because the inside is going to affect more the people sitting at the table. If there are kids, if there aren't kids, then we're going to put it on the inside because if we put it on the outside, again, I feel like I'm being not clear. We don't want the kids to play with it. So if it's on the inside, they're going to play with it. We put it on the outside. So it's, away from the children. If, though, we put it on the outside, then it's jutting out from the table. And we're going to see that there's, people who serve the shamash, he would bump into it. That would be annoying for him. So if there's kids, we have no choice. Otherwise, the table's going to fall apart. So he has to be careful. So aren't kids, then we make it easy for the shamash. Some people say, no, it could be, there's no kids at all. It's just when there's a shamash and someone's setting up and around that, then we want to make sure it's not jutting out. But when there is no shamash, then we don't care, and then we put it on the inside. Last option. Could be there is a shamash, it's just there's daytime and nighttime. At nighttime, you won't notice, he'll bump into it. In the daytime, you should be careful and notice and pay attention. Because the idea is that we don't want it, if it's on the inside, it's going to get in the way of the people eating at the table. We don't want to do that, but as long as it won't be a problem that the shamash is going to bump into it. And we'll just finish with Shala'am Aretz. Well, if we have the Talmidei Chachamim, what's the opposite of them? The Amarei Aretz, how did they eat? It's domel midura. It's like a bonfire. It's like there's a bonfire in the middle, and there's lots of pots all around. It's a big mess. The pots are on the table, right? You ever serve with food in the pots? Some people would be horrified if you did that kind of thing, right? That's what we're saying. Don't put the pots on the table. They make mess, dirty, everything. Everything's like a mess. Everything's all over the place. It's not organized. Okay, and that's why we basically set up this distinction between Talmidei Chachamim and Am Haaretz. The Chachamim keep things orderly. Am Haaretz don't. Okay, whether this is true or not, right? This is the perception of the rabbis that they view their own kind as being top notch and other people being not. Okay, they look down on other people, which raises a whole issue. You should be condescending and all that. You have to also understand the times. Maybe they really were like that. We don't really know. Okay, so we started off with the brothers and we compared it to some case about the signatures, and then we said, no, that was a problem because 3/4 of it went by the brothers, and it's not the same as our Mishna. Then we went to the Elul Ram Shit, create a chazaka, and then those things that don't create a chazaka, and then we had to figure out, well, what's the difference between them? We brought 4 different answers, which I already summarized, so I'm not going to go back to that. From there, we got into partners and what things you could prevent partners from doing. Oh, you can't prevent them from actually doing laundry. You can prevent them from anything else, but not laundry, because that you don't want to make the women go outside and do it because it's not appropriate. And if there are women who are doing it outside, the men should watch out not to look at them. And then we talked about, well, how should the men themselves need to dress, that they also have a high standard if they're Talmidei Chachamim, and what should their tables look like as opposed to the Am Haaretz tables. With that, we finished for today. Wishing everyone a great day.